just boom, smacked in the face, or at least give us a teaser that we have to find in the book, that when you did your research, and you're a pretty high pale comparison in knowledge compared to you. You have many books, you're a bestseller. But what was one or two things that, again, give us a teaser or tell us a little bit that you just were shocked that when you found out in the book?
Yeah, so I'll do three things. First was something that I found was the 1976 DEA report. So I wrote this book and did most of the research primarily during COVID. Yeah. So it really limited some of my stuff. And even like FOIA requests. I just got my FOIA request for Frank Vicerto like 2 weeks ago because everything was pushed back because of COVID.
Was it redacted?
The first time it was redacted because I forgot to attach the death list. And then I was like, oh, man, I can't wait another couple months. So I reached out to a guy who sent me the email and I said, look, man, here's my situation. Can you please help me out here? And I attached the death list. And he said, and for those listening, the death list is when you make a FOIA request. Generally, you want to give them a list of people that are dead that you think are going to be in those files, as well as like an obituary or something to prove.
Yeah,
like Ancestry.com page showing that they're dead. So when they see their name, they won't redact it.
Interesting.
So he pushed it to the front of the queue, and there were still some things redacted, but it was just opened up this whole trove of information. And that was the first thing, was how violent and how many murders were, number one, attributed to the Purple Gang. But number two, I don't think people realize how many mafia murders there were in New York City in the 1970s.
Oh, wow.
There were a lot more than people think. You think like the 1920s was like kind of like a violent era.
Even the 90s at a Columbia War was kind of hot too.
Yeah. But the 70s in New York, there were a lot of shootings, a lot of mafia killings. That was number one. Then the number two was kind of the Florida connection with Frank Vicerto and the gun running out of Florida. And then that their potential tie to the killing of Don Arano, who was this famous boat maker in Miami, and he was killed in 1987. So those are two things that I was like, whoa, this is pretty cool. This is pretty interesting.
That was the guy with the speedboat, the cigarette boat guy?
Correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
See, we can spend a lot of time on it. I'm going to put a link below. For those that have been watching up to this point, put a hashtag Purple Gang in the comments. Don't give it away. Just put hashtag Purple Gang. We're going to give away one audio book. I'll reach out to the person below. That's on Scott. Thank you, Scott, for that.
You're welcome.
And any final conclusions before we wrap up?
Well, I will say that I had the most sources I ever had in a book on this one. I had, I think, 450 individual references.
Wow.
So this was one that took a lot of digging to find information, but I enjoyed it. So hope everyone does too.
I have a question to ask, because
sure.
Think about you is what I like is, I think there's two types of writers. You have one writer that's so academic that, it's like they don't even talk to a street guy about it. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, and then you have some street guy who is kind of a ghostwriter and just writes whatever they tell them, and it's half full of shit, right? You, what I love is you're kind of in the middle in terms of like you're academic and you're well written, but you were able to talk to some guys that were involved, and I like that balance that you've historically had. So that I just want to give you that compliment. But also, how do you cite those sources? Like if it's like, an offline source, how do you cite that? Just out of curiosity.
So I will say to the first thing, I appreciate that because I've tried to write both sides a little bit more. So I try to get right down the middle because I want to appeal to general public, but I also want to appeal to the hardcore mob guys that are like, well, where did you find that info?
Exactly.
But citing, if there's somebody that doesn't want to be cited, I'll just use it in the context of what I'm writing about.
Got it.
And there's some that I'll just put like in Garden State Gangland, I talked to a guy. He's like, yeah, I'd prefer if you didn't put my name, but you can quote me. And I just put unnamed source. So I've done that a few times. That's not a problem.
Part and parcel for the course. Yep. Well, listen, you got to check it out. I'm going to put a link in the description to buy the book, get the book. Let us know how it is. Put the comment below, hashtag Purple Gang. If not, more importantly, get the book anyway. So audiobook is great, but you can't touch it, feel it, and smell it. Hitman, the Mafia, drugs, East Island Purple Gang. Scott Deitche, thank you so much for being on.
Thanks again. Always enjoy coming on here.
My pleasure.